Hey everyone, we're here with Sofia from Exiled Hope. If you don't know them, you should fucking check them out. It's a pretty fucking cool project. Uh, Again, Sophia, greatly appreciate you taking time to come hang out. I'm reading about you today and I'm impressed. Like,
I was ready for you to say confused.
I mean, I guess a little bit because law school, right in the middle of writing scores for films and releasing a Apocrypha.
Yeah, Apocrypha.
Okay, I'm like, uh,
Bit of a tough one.
yeah, it is. It's great though. At least I didn't fuck it up.
Thank you.
So it looks like you started writing this back in 21. Is that right?
Yes, I did back when I was an undergrad.
And undergrad, smarty pants. So you like you did all the instruments, all the vocals. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah,
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 in a nutshell, everything. Except the
yeah.
mixing and mastering. I outsourced that because I tried to learn it and it goes way over my head. I just can't do it. I have so much respect for people who can do that because I can't.
Oh,
So,
dude, it's such an attention to detail when you get to that nope, no thanks.
absolutely. Yeah.
So what was the writing process like? Because you were still like learning instruments or becoming better at instruments while you were writing this. Like, walk us through that process.
Yeah, so I had released two prior full-length Exiled Hope albums in 2020 and 2021, and a short little like film score style instrumental EP also in 2021. And when I started working on Apocrypha in the summer of 2021, I realized that I didn't have the skill level that I needed to write the music that I wanted to make and to take Exiled Hope to the next level and really start sounding like the bands that inspired me. Because right now I felt like, oh, I'm kind of getting there, but I'm not quite there. And there are a few things that I need to learn and that I need to refine in order to get to that next level and to start making the music that I want to make and to develop the tools to sound the way I want to sound as an artist. So I started working on the album and took a bit of a pause for a few months to just practice working on covers and take voice lessons, learn new stuff on guitar, just cover new songs and learn different styles and get a bit better at synths and keyboard things and just learn as much as I could and then start implementing it on original music. So it was very much this process of a little bit of coaching and a little bit of trial and error along the way. So eventually I felt like I was at this point where I could jump back into fully committing to finishing the album because I had developed most of the skills that I needed in order to make the music that I wanted to make on Apocrypha. And I'm a perfectionist. I'm never going to feel entirely like an album is the best, the absolutely best representation of my work, but I got very close on Apocrypha for what it is and for what I am able to do right now. So I'm very proud of that album for what it is, and I can't wait to keep developing my skill set and
I,
expanding my skills. So
you should be. I mean, that's to be able to do all of it and it to turn out as good as it did. That in itself is impressive. And I kind of relate like writing music to building a house. You go into it and you're like, I have this idea. This is my perfect house. And then you get done and you're like, oh man, if we'd have did that, it would have been so much better. So like it's constant evolution of like learning and trying new things, pushing
yeah,
boundaries.
I think to an extent you're always going to feel like that as an artist if you're really committed to what you do. It's in a good way. You're never going to feel good enough. Like there's the good way of that, and then there's the way in which that's bad and harmful to you. But there's a certain. I feel like I need this sense of okay, I can always do better. I can always do something a little bit differently in order to keep developing and writing new songs.
Yeah, I mean, and that's good, right? It's like the constant development to see an artist go from, I don't want to say like beginner stages, but when they start writing music versus where they are, 20 years down the road, it's leaps and bounds different.
Yeah, and the first Exiled Hope album was actually my first experience actually recording myself because I was in a band in college. It was so it was kind of an indie alt rock band, and we sort of fell apart during COVID because we couldn't practice together. And I had all these ideas that I wanted to put down, but that wouldn't really fit within the context of what we were doing in the band. So I just started learning to record myself and playing around with different styles of singing, different ways of recording guitar, and that turned into the first Exiled Hope album. It was all, back then, it was just all this process of trial and error and learning the basics of recording. And then Angel of Greytown, the second album, kind of built on that a little bit stylistically, but it still doesn't reach the quality of the songwriting and the performances on Angel of Greytown, on Apocrypha. And Apocrypha is the result of all of that experience, just kind of building and building and building, so that it becomes this more complete, holistic, expression of what I can do.
Yeah, and it looked, just listening to you talk about, the first two albums, it sounds like you stepping back and going, okay, I need to like really sharpen these skills.
Yeah.
It took you to that next level, which is it's an amazing thing because I think a lot of people go, oh man, I could be better at that. And for them, it's a wall, like, oh, if only, you
Yeah,
know.
to a certain extent, it does feel like that. Like it's frustrating when you can't get a technique to sound the way you want it to, but you just everything is learnable. Like I did not start off singing the way I do, and I did not start off playing guitar the way I do. Everything in music you can learn if you have the right coaching and if you have the drive to learn how to do it. You can do it.
Yeah, the drive. I think that's the number one thing, you know.
Absolutely. You have to find that motivation, find that discipline to practice. I always say that motivation follows discipline. So even when you don't feel like writing original music for a while, or if you feel stuck, you need to have the discipline to practice and keep your skill set up and keep exploring new things and pushing yourself to do things that you thought you couldn't do. And that's going to lead you to these breakthroughs that inspire you to create more music.
Yeah, and that I think that in itself can really translate into all aspects of life because
Yep.
you hear a lot of people like, man, I'm just gonna wait till I get the motivation to do something, and no, you can't. If you want it bad enough, you're gonna get up when you're not feeling good, when you're not motivated, and you're gonna really push through it to make whatever that goal is like happen. You know,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You just have to want it badly enough to do it.
for sure. I bet it was a lot like that going through like law school.
Oh, yeah, I graduate in, what is it, 3 months? I graduate in May. It's crazy. I had so many breakdowns while I was studying for the LSAT because I just wasn't getting it and I thought I couldn't do it. And I switched the study program that I was using and that changed everything for me. And I was like, oh, all of a sudden I can do this. So sometimes it really is just a matter of changing your perspective and being taught in a
Yeah.
different way. Like you just can't give up when you hit that one wall. You have to have it explained to you in a certain way. And I remember being in my conflicts of law class last semester, and up until then, I felt like I just was not very good at legal writing because it's a very different skill from creative writing, which is,
Oh yeah.
given the lyrics in Exiled Hope, I have kind of a creative writing background, and they say that if you come from a creative writing background, it's really hard to learn legal writing because you go from writing all this fun, fancy, flowery stuff to being extremely strict and extremely logical and straightforward with your writing, and it's a completely different skill. So I went through several semesters of law school where I felt like that just did not click. But then this guest speaker, who was a friend of my conflicts of law professor, came to our class one day and talked about this appellate brief that he'd written, and all of a sudden everything clicked for me. And I was like, wow, if legal writing had been explained to me in this way, I could have avoided so many semesters of horrible grades.
Yeah.
So,
It's funny how how that happens. I think
mhm.
it's like that in itself translate to bands too, because some bands really they come across okay recorded, but then you see them live and it's like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, I'm absolutely analogizing this to music. This isn't just a rant about law school. It's, the
Yeah,
central message is still the same. Sometimes you just need to change your perspective or be taught to do something in a different way because everyone learns differently.
that is 100% true.
Yeah.
I wish we'd have thought like that when I was a kid. I was terrible at school. Anyway, so on Apocrypha, like obviously you worked on it over the course of like 3 years and really honed your skills. Um, Out of that time, is there like a song on the album that stands out to you as like, man, this was like the the epitome or the peak for this like album?
Yeah, Blood of the Ancients is one of my favorite songs that I've ever written because I think it's the song that uses every technique that I learned, from the really thrashy sounding guitar riffs to the really high pitched screams that I could not do for the longest time. That song, I think, epitomizes my growth as an artist from the first few albums because I'm doing all of these things that I never could do before. And I'm trying not to do it in this like show off way. I'm trying to do it in a way that fits the context of the song. And but yeah, it's just it combines everything that I was trying to do and that I thought I couldn't do. And it's kind of this testament to, hey, I worked on this, I learned how to do it, I'm so much better than I used to be, and I'm really proud to show it to you.
As you should be. And I think sometimes as much as you don't want it to look show offy, it's just going to come across like that, like, haha, look what I can do.
Especially if it's such a massive upgrade from what I was doing, which it
Yeah.
is. It's just gonna come off that way, and can't say I'm sorry about it. So
Whatever. Like,
yeah,
and to accomplish that while you're going to school is, I think that's another feat. Like my wife, we've got two kids, and she worked full-time job and went to school full-time while I did all of my crazy stuff. And I don't know how she did it.
I have a lot of classmates who are parents. Some of them have had kids while they're in law school, and I don't know how they do it. That's
No.
next level to me.
Well, I mean, you had a kid too. We just call it Apocrypha, like,
Yeah, it's a musical child.
yeah, it took you, I think, a lot longer to create that than it did the 3 minutes or 5 minutes to create a baby, you
Uh-huh.
know.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So with Apocrypha, do you like have any goals or thresholds that you would like to see it meet over the next year or so?
Yeah, I would really love to start making a decent side income off of music and, you know, hit a certain level of album sales on my Bandcamp page or wherever you want to buy it. Hit a certain level of streams and monthly listeners on streaming platforms. I mean, that's not the end all be all. That's not why I do it, but it would be really cool to kind of hit those marks that other bands that I admire have hit, so that I kind of feel more like a peer and not just this up and coming wannabe.
Yeah.
It'll definitely make me feel more legitimate if I can be at that level and if I can sound like I'm at that level too.
But I think a lot of times, even being at that level, there's a little bit of the imposter syndrome, like, oh, am I like, should I be here? And you're like, you're playing on the same stage as, I don't know, Metallica or, whoever it is. Like,
Yeah, I'm feeling that way now. Like, I'm proud of the album, of course, but I'm shocked that people love it as much as they do and that it's received the feedback that it has because it was just recorded by me in a little dorm room in undergrad or my little apartment in law school, and it's all homemade, homegrown, all personally, handcrafted, and it's yeah, I just never expected it to be received so positively.
I mean, that's awesome. And, being able to record, I think, in your bedroom or in a dorm or wherever, uh, it's come a long way, from what it was. I feel like in the
Mm.
90s, I had my little cassette that we did 4 tracks on, like, oh, this is going to be so awesome. And it
Yeah.
turns out like complete crap. You're like, now
Mm.
all you need is your computer. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I just plug everything into my little Focusrite interface, and it goes into the USB port, and I just record like that. So
Rock and roll. What program do you use to record?
I use Logic. I
Okay.
started with GarageBand for the first two albums, and then I upgraded to Logic.
And do you like how are you feeling with like where you are with the your usefulness of Logic versus like where GarageBand was?
Oh, Logic is a lot more useful. You can do a lot more on it. I'm a very shitty sound engineer, as I mentioned earlier, but it's really fun to play around with the different effects and the different options that you have to play with the way it sounds and the way that you record things. So there are a lot of different drum samples that I use on Logic. All of my drums are just the loops on Logic that I go in and manually edit to sound more realistic and to fit the song. Because I think a bad drum beat just kills a song
Oh yeah.
if it's the wrong fit. So yeah, Logic is a lot of fun to play with. There's a lot that you can do with it, and I need to learn more about it because my friends say that I've gotten impressively far without knowing how anything works. So, yeah.
I mean, that's that's a great compliment. Like you're like, I don't know, I'm just gonna try stuff until it works, you
I'm
know?
really good at figuring things out just through trial and error without really knowing the mechanics of them. Like, I just started recording in Logic and seeing, oh, this sounds better than this, so I'm gonna do it this way, and it just happens to be the right way to do things, but I didn't actually know the mechanics of how it worked.
Well, and look at you. You went to school for law and now you're gonna be like a sound engineer, like
Maybe, who knows? Maybe I just need to learn it a different way.
I mean maybe that could be, but it sounds like you're doing I think thus far you're doing pretty good with it.
Thank you. Or my,
Uh,
my mix engineer is doing really well with it.
yeah. A little bit of both, right?
Mhm.
Um, so how long, like when you went into to record, we'll use your song, Blood of the Ancients. When you went in to record that, what was that like process itself like for you?
So I recorded the synths for it first, and I think the song was originally going to be another song on the album, which was Altar of Moloch, because it started off sounding kind of the way that I imagined that song to sound, and then it developed differently the more I layered onto the song. So I started with the synth parts and did the orchestration for that. Then I layered the guitar parts and redid that a couple of times because I wasn't super happy with my playing style. And then I went and listened to some Iced Earth and I was like, okay, this is how I want my rhythm playing to sound. Yeah, another Iced Earth band. Yeah, so I went and listened to them and I was like, this is what I want my rhythm guitar playing to sound like. I want to adopt the style into my music because I feel like it would be a great complement to the symphonic elements and to the power metal elements because you often
Oh,
hear that kind of thrashy sounding intense guitar in symphonic power metal or whatever. And so I started doing that. I started trying to refine the guitar parts, and the vocals were the hardest to record because, again, I didn't have the skill set that I do now. Back when I first started the song, so I took some lessons and learned how to scream, learned how to do the really high notes, and learned how to add some distortion to my clean vocals in a way that doesn't hurt. And yeah, so it was this process of just building and building and building, and it started with the synths, then the guitars, then I took a little break to learn things to make my voice sound better and to accomplish what I wanted vocally, and then I went back and I was nitpicky about how I recorded the vocals. So
that's cool.
yeah.
So, one thing I noticed on the album, one thing I really like that really stands out to me is the growls, your gruff vocals. Like what was when you went in to record, did you like have a warm-up process? Like so you didn't ruin your voice?
Yeah, it's the same foundation applies to clean singing and to harsh vocals. So I didn't actually take lessons in harsh vocals. I took lessons in contemporary pop singing, and all of the foundations, breath support, control. One of the key things that I learned was not to let out too much air at one time and to keep the volume at a steady level so that you're not just yelling and blowing your voice out because you can hurt your voice singing clean if you do it too loudly and too forcefully, and you can hurt your voice doing harsh vocals doing it too loudly and too forcefully. So it's just about, being conscious of your air pressure and how much force you're putting behind it so that you don't blow out your voice and so that you're creating the distortion in a sustainable way. So that was kind of the process behind learning how to do that. And I had done it on previous albums, but I didn't know what I know now, so it wasn't as sustainable of a technique, and I just couldn't make as many harsh vocal sounds on those albums as I can now. So I feel like my range developed a lot from those albums to Blood of the Ancients, and I very consciously tried to fit the harsh vocals into the context of a song because I feel like when you just kind of add different vocal styles without thinking about how they fit in the song and how they support the mood of the song, it sounds kind of cheesy and kind of lame and like you're just throwing it in there just because. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to fit in the lyrics and in the mood and in the theme. So I was very intentional about how I chose the pitch and the feel of those harsh vocals. I went for a very black metal, potentially melodic death metal feel on that, and that's how I approach that.
I mean, that's pretty awesome. I probably, I'm so attracted to those vocals because I'm really into like death metal and black metal. And I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, it's all
so
the same foundations as clean singing. You just apply it in a different way, and it can be a little bit harder to grasp at first, but it is that same essential, foundational point.
that's pretty cool. So do you have plans to take this live, or is it just a studio project?
This is just a studio project, and I've always written my music with the intention that it will get sync placements and that it'll show my ability to make soundtracks and that I'll get more film, game, and TV sync placements from my music. So I write it in a way that's very layered and kind of improvisational in some parts, and it's difficult to reproduce live because there are so many layers. And I'm so nitpicky about what I do that it would be really hard to teach other musicians how to bring these songs to life in exactly the way that I intended them to
Yeah.
intended them to be heard. So I would say instead of bringing the songs to a live setting, I really would love to bring them to like epic video game scores, TV scores, movie scores, bring it more into that setting and use the music as a, hey, this is what I can do in this context, and it spans these different genres so it can be applicable to different kinds of projects.
So I guess, is that your ultimate goal to like score film and things like that?
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I mean, obviously I want to keep doing metal, but I would love to expand into film scoring because that was some of my earliest exposure to music, I would say.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and you can still score films with all metal.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, you absolutely can. Like Doom, the game, that's all a metal soundtrack. There are so many different really cool metal soundtracks that I think my music could work great for. So,
yeah, that's really cool. That's actually, I talk to so many bands and almost every one of them is like, I'm only playing in the studio or we're going live. I think you're the first person I've talked to that's like, oh, I'd like to translate this into like scoring movies and video games and shit like that. Like, I think that's cool as hell. Because,
thanks.
one of my, I think, favorite things is to be watching a movie and a piece of music comes on and I'm just like, oh man, that is so fucking awesome.
Yeah, one of my favorite games of all time is Skyrim, and the soundtrack makes that game. It is not the Skyrim experience without the soundtrack. Like, when you have a soundtrack that's that iconic, that it just makes the game or the film or the TV show what it is, that's how you know you have a good soundtrack because it lends its own atmosphere and kind of becomes its own character in the story.
Oh, for sure. Even thinking like, old school, like Super Mario and
Yep.
Zelda, like you hear any of the sounds from that, you're like, I know exactly what that's from. Like,
Exactly. Like it would be so cool to create something that iconic.
yeah. Well, I mean, you got the whole world ahead of you.
Guess so.
So, what kind of like it's kind of off the music topic, maybe. What kind of law are you studying?
Music law. So
Okay.
it all dovetails, you see. So I went to undergrad with the intention of being an economist, and that didn't work out because I can't do math. And so I switched my major to public policy and actually started taking a couple of music business classes because they were offered and I was interested in the topic. And I really enjoyed those classes. And my professor, who I'm actually talking to in March because I got invited back to my undergrad to speak at an alumni event, so my professor encouraged me to think about studying music law while I'm in law school and to pursue that as a career path. And I had never considered it before because I thought law sounded really boring. And I kind of wrote it off for a little bit and thought, that sounds a little bit too boring for me. I don't really feel like that's the right fit for me. But I did some more research on it and I interviewed lawyers who were working in that field and learned from them and took notes and networked with people. And I learned, hey, this could actually be a really good fit for me. I'm going to do this and I'm going to go to law school. So when COVID hit, I studied for the LSAT. And it took me a really long time because I'm not very great at studying for tests. But I eventually got the score that I wanted and I got into law school and I started, after the hell that is the first year of law school, I started taking classes that are more in my field and more aligned with my interests. So I started taking all the intellectual property and entertainment law related classes that I could. And, that's becoming the foundation that I have in a career in music law. And I also picked up a law clerk job at a firm based out of Florida. So I work remotely for them. And I have been working there since the summer of my first year of law school. And yeah, so I'm getting a lot of experience in music law.
That's pretty cool. I know like IP is always, there's so much just with IP alone that
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people really take in mind. And I feel like, or not even feel like, I believe that, we need more good attorneys, if that's not an oxymoron. You know what I
It
mean?
makes sense. A lot of there's a specific person, not to sound like an asshole, but there's a specific personality type that tends to be drawn that tends to be drawn to law. And at first, it's kind of hard to understand it if you're not in the battlefield yourself and you're not really exposed to it on a consistent day-to-day basis. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who go to law school for, reasons that may not have very much of a personal or well thought out basis. A lot of people go to law school for what I think are the wrong reasons and they either struggle or, they end up doing really well but they end up working at jobs that are working them like 80 hours a week and they don't see their families, they sleep at the office and they make really good money, but at
What
what
cost?
point do you yeah, it's the golden handcuffs. So but there are people who go to law school for very personal reasons and they want to do something very personal with their legal education. And, I'm not trying to sound like I'm putting myself on a pedestal or going, I went to law school for the right reason and you went to law school for the wrong reason. And, just trying to say that you can have personal reasons that that don't really have anything to do with external motivating factors and that just have to do with you wanting to find your niche in a certain area. And in my case, my goal was to become a respected music industry professional with highly technical, in-demand skills that I could leverage to enter different kinds of professional circles and, find my niche in this area.
Yeah, I think, with anything, right? You have a righteous reason for doing it and a self-serving reason for doing that. Sometimes, I guess sometimes they cross, right? They can be one and the same, but um if you always come from a place of I don't want to say a place of curiosity, but a place of like willing to help people with your knowledge, I think it opens up a world of possibilities for, for that person.
Yeah, it's not bad to go to law school because you want to make a lot of money doing it, but you're not going to be as personally satisfied as someone who thinks about what they want to do with it and then pursues something that makes them satisfied and gives them enough money to live on and to be happy with their lifestyle.
For sure.
Yeah.
Wow. We got deep.
Yeah. That's my specialty.
All right.
That's
Mine
good.
too, but it typically goes around like mental health.
Yeah,
Eh,
yeah. And that's really that's important too for us, anyone who's been to law school knows how depressing it is, especially that first year. You kind of have a crisis and
get
wonder
your
why
ass
you're
kicked
there.
every day.
Yeah, yeah, literally. I did not touch my guitar for the first 3 months of law school, and that's because I was really depressed. And I kind of let school become my entire personality and didn't really feel like a musician anymore. And I just felt like I was constantly fighting to be heard and fighting to stay above water and just, you know, try to, pass the next test or pass the next assignment decently. And no one really tells you what to do during law school. Like you go in thinking like it's going to be college 2.0. It is not. It's completely different from anything you've probably experienced before. So it's a massive learning curve, and I was very depressed for a long time, and I did not touch my guitar. But then over winter break, I touched my guitar again. I started playing again, and I realized, oh, this makes me really happy, and I need to find time to do this because I can't let myself lose my personality again. I need to make music or do something involving music in order to feel like myself because I just didn't feel like myself during that semester, and I decided that I was not going to do that again.
Well, it's good that you like recognize that because I think especially, in our 20s, we're so like career focused or, focused on what everything but making ourselves happy or realizing that our happiness is really important, especially to our success, right? Because
Yeah.
if we're depressed, what are the things we're going to do? We're going to drink, we're going to do a bunch of drugs, we're going to do everything except be productive towards whatever our goal is.
Yeah, lawyers have some of the highest rates of alcoholism in any profession. And during orientation week, they told us all about, oh, here are some resources to get help if you, develop issues with substance abuse, because it's a real risk for a lot of people who
Yeah.
are in this profession. And then right after that, they were like, oh, by the way, here's a bunch of free alcohol in the atrium. So yeah.
But it's funny. So I'm a realtor, and it's the same way in real estate.
Yeah.
Like you go into, I think it's last I looked, it was the sixth most stressful job or something. So someone asked me today, they're like, "Hey, what's it like being a realtor?" I said, "Well, you've been to a bar?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "That's every office. You just walk in there. Like if you want a shot of bourbon, you can drink bourbon, beer, like vodka, whatever you want. I promise it's in someone's office in there. Like they're like, celebrate because you had a closing. Woo. I need a drink because something fell apart. Woo. Like they drink so much. I actually gave up drinking September of 23. I was
Nice.
like, nope, no more. And I'm realizing now, like every event we have revolves around alcohol. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, and I don't drink, and I found it really hard to socialize in law school because all of the events revolve around alcohol, and they gave us this really like damning speech about alcoholism in the legal profession, and it feels a little bit hypocritical and weird.
yes, yeah. I mean, that's where they're like, here are your resources for, whatever your addiction is.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's why I started drinking like liquid death, just
Mhm.
because it made me feel like I have a can in my hand.
Yeah.
And
I started just bringing this like hydro flask or this thermos, and no one can tell what's in it, and
right.
no one can tell that I'm not participating in whatever they're doing.
Yeah. It's cool. Like, and it's really funny to watch them get drunk and you're like,
It's
oh
kind of
man,
fun.
you're gonna hate yourself tomorrow, but this is great for me right now.
Yeah, as sadistic as it sounds, it's kind of entertaining.
It it's hilarious. And the saddest thing is I know I was the butt of those jokes for a long time. So now I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't
Yeah,
have to worry about that.
yeah, you came out on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so you are three full lengths and one EP.
Mhm.
out.
For Exiled Hope, and then kind of not in the Exiled Hope canon, I have the little film soundtrack that I did for What Happens After Midnight. So
Oh, and Hollowed Paths, right?
yeah, that's hopefully coming out next year. They've had several setbacks in the filming because they're all film students too. They're all in undergrad. They're still getting their degrees. They're all younger than me. So they've had a lot of setbacks in filming, but it's pretty much done. It's nearly there. The soundtrack is definitely done. It's been done for a while, and I'm just waiting until the film comes out or the music video for the title track comes out, and then I can start promoting that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Like that. So how did I guess writing a song and composing a soundtrack, I mean, essentially that's what it is. Like whatever genre of music, you're still composing a soundtrack to a film. Was it different for you in like the compositional aspect?
So it's different because, you're following directions from the film director. It has to fit the scene, it has to fit the certain mood and the certain qualities that the director wants. But I approach it very similarly to making the orchestral or synthy parts of my music, and I kind of keep it at that base layer, but I will fluff it up a bit and make it sound a bit more lively and more full than I would on an Exiled Hope song, because on Exiled Hope the guitars tend to compete with the synth parts and I don't want to have it sounding too busy. So with film scoring, I it's pretty much all synths, and I have a lot more space to explore with different synth sounds and play with different feelings, different tones, and make that and kind of have certain instruments, virtual instruments, substitute for the guitar. So it's a lot like doing Exiled Hope, but it feels a couple steps removed from it because I'm just focusing on that base layer mainly.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's kind of a really interesting way to look at it. Like base layer, and then, I guess like when you go write Exiled Hope stuff, you have your base layer and then you just build on top of it. Like, oh, we're gonna throw this here and that there and
Yeah.
you know, maybe the kitchen sink.
Yeah, I did a lot of, I used to do a lot of what I called cinematic versions of Exiled Hope songs where I would release just the synth part and maybe the drum part for an Exiled Hope song, and it sounds completely different from the full song with the guitars, drums, and vocals all layered there. And it's crazy because it sounds like a completely different song, but that's just the synth parts, that's just the bass layer, and somehow it fits with the guitar and the vocal parts. So,
That's really cool.
yeah.
So have you thought about just like with Apocrypha releasing the full album and then like the base layers?
Yeah, so I did that with Blood of the Ancients and Dreamwalker, two of the singles. I might do that with the rest of the album. We'll see. It's kind of a different process when you're just mixing the bass layers versus trying to make them sound good in context with the guitar, vocal, and drum parts. So that may be an extra project to take on, but it would be really cool. So.
Yeah, I think it would be neat. I always like um I say I always like often I like, are you familiar with the band The Ocean?
No, I don't think so.
So they're like post rock or post metal. I'm not 100% sure like what genre or subgenre they fit in. They're a fantastic band, and a couple of their albums they released like the full album and then they released like instrumental versions, and it was like it's really cool to listen through, all of it and then just hear the instrumental parts. Obviously, right, it goes from being a single album to a double album,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's really cool to watch the differences in, in the song structures, just even just removing vocals from some of them. You're
Yeah,
like,
it's,
man,
it's crazy.
yeah, huh,
It's like you have a
hmm,
completely different song.
yeah, it's a whole other like scenario that allows someone's brain to go, okay, what are we doing here? Let's move.
Yeah, leaves a lot of room for imagination.
For sure. Yeah, my brain is so fried right now. I'm like, uh,
I feel that. So many things going on.
for sure. So physical copies.
I would love to do that. I have never done that before, but I don't have the capacity to hold inventory right now. So if I find a print-on-demand service for physical copies, and if there's sufficient demand for them, I will make them. So be on the lookout for some polls on my social media about that in the coming months because I would like to get ahead of that and have that done. I was thinking about making little ebooks, like little digital ebooks with the lyrics, because the lyrics are a very important part of the Exiled Hope experience. So I started doing that and then got distracted by a million other things that I was doing. But I could probably return to that and make that work too.
Well, so you're on Bandcamp. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Bandcamp has like a print on demand or
Oh, neat.
something like that where you could like press, vinyl doing like 50, right? And they wouldn't print them until you had so many pre-sales or something. But
Okay. I will definitely look into that because I've thought about doing that, but I just didn't know if there was demand for it, and I didn't know if people would buy them, so I didn't want to like waste time and resources on preparing something that there's not a demand for. But I've heard this from a couple of people now, so yeah, be on the lookout for it, I guess.
I think there's a demand for it. You just don't aren't seeing it quite yet because it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
there for you to, really like really see.
exactly.
That's for me, that's an important part of like a band is the physical media.
Hmm.
Uh, my every, I say every band I love, probably not every band, but a lot of the bands I love, I've got, I don't even know how many records. Like I've got a
Hmm.
wall full over there. I've got them here. I've got them over here. When they show up, my wife goes, "Really? Another record?" Yeah.
Got a whole physical library. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I'm like, "What do you want to listen to?" She's like, "Not any of the shit you got." I'm like, all right, Sophia, uh, thank you very much for taking time out of your night to come and hang out and chat with me about Exiled Hope and your vision for the future.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm a little weird, especially right now. But
Yeah.
no, it was a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun getting to like know you, right? Because that is such an important part of the music that I think sometimes people forget about. So uh, the music lawyer taking over the world of film composition. That's
It all comes full circle.
10 years. That's in 10 years, I'm going to be like, I interviewed her when she was like kind of starting out, going places. And now she's going to be like, I don't even know who the fuck you are.
I will always remember you. I'll always remember the early days.
Yes. Yeah. Rock and roll. Awesome. Well, Sophia, I wish you the best of luck with the rest of your year and your graduation, your incoming graduation in like 3 months. Uh, I look forward to seeing more Exiled Hope stuff too.
Thank you so much. And there is plenty of new Exiled Hope stuff along the way. Is that a cat?
Yeah,
Oh,
this is Sophia. Say hi.
oh my God. Hi. You have little mittens. You're so cute.
She literally um, lays right next to me every interview.
My personal rule for Zoom calls is that if there's an animal that comes into the frame, you must introduce the animal. So I appreciate you introducing the animal.
Oh,
Yeah.
if she doesn't show her face, I don't ever say anything. But at the minute she does or her tail shows up, I'm like, yep, that's
Yeah.
her. Sophia
Anyway,
is.
I was
She's
talking
like,
about new. Hello.
she's like, come here, come on, good girl.
Aw.
She's 10 years old and she's just like, hi.
Hello. You look like a little tuxedo cat.
Yeah. So not really a funny story, but the story of how we got her. Like our kids wanted a cat, so my wife got a cat,
Hmm.
and that cat, my son named Toby after one of my best friends who passed away years ago. And at one point, the cat, it was like probably 10, 12 weeks old, laid under a pillow, and our my oldest dog, who was our only dog at the time, I think,
Mm.
laid on the pillow and suffocated the cat. So yeah, how fucking
Cool.
weird is that? So I'm like I'm literally at a funeral for my stepdad,
Mm.
and I get a call, like I think they had just, said did whatever and started lowering him down. I get a call, hey, I got bad news, and I'm like what can be much worse than, you know,
Mm.
burying someone? She goes, well, cat just passed away. I'm like, are you like,
Oh.
could you at least give me a couple hours after the
Yeah.
funeral?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
but kind of is what it is. Luckily, they weren't like too attached yet, or we weren't too attached yet. And probably, uh, probably a couple weeks later, maybe a couple of months, she came home with Sophia, and now we have three pit bulls and Sophia.
Hmm.
Those dogs don't fuck with her at all.
Oh. They know who rules the roost.
Yeah, yeah. This is Sophia's house. We just live in it.
So sweet.
Yeah.
What sweet little
Awesome.
baby.
Yes. Uh, okay, Sophia. God, that was a little off trail, but whatever.
I'm always happy to talk about cats.
Yeah, I love my cat. I love my dogs too. So Sophia, again, thank you. I'm really looking forward to the next stuff. I know that
It's in
your
development.
PR person will keep me informed of all the things,
Yes.
and we'll connect. I'm sure we're connected on Instagram, or will be soon
Yeah,
if we are
yeah.
not.
I'm legally underscore metal on Instagram and Threads. I yap a lot on Threads. So.
Okay, I don't do threads. I don't I don't have fucking time to do like another thing. I'm like, how?
That's how I feel about TikTok. I'm not on TikTok because TikTok it's a time drain.
Yeah, well, I'm on TikTok only because one of the programs I use can automatically like post to it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. I don't care.
Mm.
All right. Uh, Sophia, go and have yourself a great night.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, see ya.
See ya.